What are Dax functions and why it is important to have understanding of Dax functions for creating dashboards in Power BI. If you want to prepare a dashboard with simple bar and column chart like this, you might not be needing expertise or I would say knowledge of Dax functions. But if you want to develop a professional dashboard like this or like this, then you must need Dax functionalities to develop these kind of dashboard. Hi friends, welcome to my channel Power BI Skills. Through this channel, I'm going to share with you a lot of tips, tricks and best practices we can use in Power BI in order to develop fabulous dashboards. In this video, we will learn about the concept of Dax functions and we would also learn top 10 basic Dax functions which are frequently being used in developing Power BI dashboards. So let's get started. So what is Dax function? The term Dax stands for data analysis expressions. Okay. Dax function is a programming language used in Power BI for writing formulas, creating measures or expressions, and to calculate and return one or more values. So in this video, we will be using these 10 Dax functions with the help of examples in Power BI. So this is the example we have where we have a data set of sales made by different salesmen on different dates. Here we have mentioned the date, sales manager, name of the salesman, product that has been sold by the salesman and the quantity sold. And there is another tab where we have a rate list available for each of the product. Let's upload this data in Power BI and then we will apply various Dax function which we are going to cover in this video. Okay, now we have data which is uploaded in our Power BI desktop. So first uh, I would create a table. I'll just select table and I would start entering the data in this table. So we have date, name of salesman, product name, quantity sold, and I can put sales manager above the salesman. So this is the table we have. Let's first use the Dax function of count. For using the function, first I would add a new card here. So this is the card and I would click on these three dots and I would enter new measure. For count, the syntax said first we'll have to mention, let's say we have to calculate the count of all the products which we are selling. Count of products. So to write the Dax function for count, you have to first enter count, then bracket. Then you have to mention the column which you have to count. So I have to count the product name. So how many products we are selling. So I have selected this. I will enter. Now I will have to drag this to the field. So there are 45 count of products which we are selling. Now the obvious question would be, If we go through the list of products, there are three products: shirts, pants, and accessories. So why this formula or this Dax function is giving me the list of 45 products. But if you see, this formula or Dax function is giving the list of all the products, not the distinct products. So if we see all the rows, you will see there are about 45 rows. So if we want to see the number of distinct products, or I would say the count of distinct products, then we will have to use a different Dax function. So for that, I would create a new measure. Let's say count of distinct quantity, or I would say products. Then my Dax function would be distinct count, and then I would select the column for which I have to calculate the count. Here we are calculating the count of product name. So I will select the product name and I will hit enter. Now to see the result of this function, I would have to create, or I would say enter a new card. I would uh, add the count of distinct product measure in this card by it. Now you can see we are selling three products: shirts, pants, and accessories. So now we are getting the count of distinct product. Okay. So let's see another example, or I would say another Dax function, which is sum, right? So for that, we'll have to create a new measure. Let's say we have to create a sum of total quantity sold of all the products. Okay. For that, the Dax function would be sum. Then we have to mention the reference of the column for which we have to calculate the total. So we have to calculate the sum total of quantity of all the products sold. So I will select quantity. I will hit enter. And to view the result, I would have to again create a new card. I would bring this card here and I would add incorporate the sum of quantity. So we have sold total 308 units of different products in the particular period which is mentioned here. Okay, so let's make this, I would say, exercise a bit more interesting by adding another concept of columns. So let's go to the table. So you can see we have a table showing date, sales manager, salesman name, product name, quantity. But there is a different table which is showing us the rate of each of the product. Now I have to bring a rate to this table. Uh, then I would be using a Dax function called LookupValue. So for that, I would have to create a new column, not measure this time. Now the concept is, why are we using column here and not measure the way which we did in our earlier Dax function? So here we have to understand the difference between the measure and column, and where we have to use measure for our Dax function and where we have to use column. So this is a very important concept you have to understand. So when the result of the Dax function is a constant number, or I would say a scalar, then we have to use measure. For example, when we are uh, calculating the count of multiple rows, or I would say the count of multiple products in the previous example, so that's a constant number. So in this case, we will always use measure, not column. Similarly, if we are calculating a sum of a particular column, we would use measure, not column. But on the other hand, when the result of Dax function is different for each row of the table, then we will use column. In that scenario, we will not use measure. Now see what we are doing in this example. We are bringing the rate of each of the product from the another tab or table to this table through the lookup value. So for each product, we have a different rate. So you would say for each row, we'll have a different value. So here we won't be having a unique value. So that's why here we are using column, not measure. So let's understand with this example. I'm adding column here. Okay, if you have a good understanding of Excel, you would have done VLOOKUPs in Excel. This is similar to VLOOKUP in Power BI. Through VLOOKUP, we are getting the rate for each product here in this table. So I'm just heading this column as rate, and I would write the Dax function lookup value. So to do the lookup value, first you have to select the information, or I would say the column which you have to bring to this table. So I need the rate list from the different table. And we have to bring the rate list to this table. So I would be selecting rate list, rate. Now, then we have to select what is the common field in both these tabs. So let's say in the rate list, we have a product name, and in the column example one, in the table example one, we have a product name. These two are common. So for each product name, we need the rate list. So first from the rate list, we select the common identifier, which is the product name. And then in this table, which is example one, we will select the product name, which is the same column which is there in the rate list, which is a common identifier. So we have the column which we need to bring to this table. Then we have the unique identifier in the previous table, which is the product name. Then we have a unique identifier in this table, which is the product name, which is common in both the tables. So moment I hit enter, I will get the rate. I'll format this in terms of, let's say, US dollars. Okay, now we have quantity and rate. Let's go back to our report view. And now we will understand the SumX function. Okay, for that, I would add a new measure. Let's say I name it as total sales. So when we have to calculate the total sales, we have to calculate by multiplying the quantity sold with rate. So when we have learned some Dax function, we have only given the column name for which we have to do the sum. But here we don't have a single column. We have two columns. One is rate, other one is quantity, and we have to first multiply the two rows, and then we have to calculate the sum of the result, which is the multiplication of the rate and quantity. In this scenario, where we have to calculate the sum of multiple columns and rows, there we have to use the function SumX. But where we have to calculate the sum of one single column, then we have to use a Dax function sum. In SumX, we have to use multiple rows and columns to calculate the sum, but in sum, we have to use only single column, or we can use only single column because system would not allow us to use multiple columns. So let's see how SumX works. In SumX, first we have to give the reference of the table which we are using. Let's say we are using the table example 1, and then we have to enter the expression. So we have to do the product of quantity and rate. So quantity multiplied by rate. So for getting the output, we have to add a new card here. And if we add total sales, so you can see the total amount sold, or total value of sales, is 183,000 US dollars. This we have calculated through SumX Dax function. There is another way where we can calculate the same amount with the help of column. So instead of creating a measure, we can add a column in this table. So let me show you. So we have a new column, and let's say I would name this column as sales, and I would simply product, or I would say multiply the quantity into rate, and I would just hit enter, and we are getting the value at each row level, right? Since this is a column, we won't be getting a constant value. We will be getting a value at each row level. And you will be getting the same result of 183K if you sum the total of this particular column, which is the sales value. But since you are adding a new column, if let's say you have a very heavy data set and you have numerous amount of data, then adding new column which result more storage space. So just to avoid that, you can use a measure instead of a column here, because if you want to save the space and you want that you will get the outcome faster, then instead of adding new columns, you should add a measure and calculate the value at a total value. This is totally based on your requirement. If you want to show it at a column level, you can calculate that. But if you want to see some total of sales in a unique field, in a constant number, you can use this particular feature. I hope you understood the count, distinct count, sum, and SumX, and lookup value Dax function so far. Now let's learn the max formula. So before doing a max formula, we have to first, let's say we can incorporate the total sales in this table. So I will just add total sales here. So now we have sales value also coming here. Now let's say I have to calculate the max of the total sales, maximum of the total sales we have made in these entire period. So let me add a new measure. I will name this measure as maximum sales in a day. So I would write a Dax function max. Just like sum, I would give the reference of the column for which we have to calculate the max. So the column here is the sales. So I would just write sales value, and moment I hit enter, so this would calculate the max value. For that I'll have to add a new card here. Oops, sorry. I'll have to add a new card. I will bring this card here. Okay. And I would uh, drag this to the fields. So 12,000 is the maximum sales which is done by any of the salesman in a particular day. You can see, you can verify from this table. So you can see on 12th of June, Joe has sold 15 shirts worth 12,000 US dollars. Uh, so this is the maximum sales that has been made in the entire period by any salesman. So this is the max formula. Okay, let's move to the another Dax function, which is a very important Dax function if you are from finance, where we have to do the comparison of current year numbers with the prior year numbers. So basically, let's say if we have to compare our current year or current month sales with the prior year or a prior month sales. So this is how we can do that. So this I can create a new measure for that. So here I would be calculating the prior year number, prior year sales, or I would say previous year sales, previous period sales, I would say. So for that, we have to use a Dax function calculate. Then we have to use sales value. Then we have to use a Dax function which is same period last year. And then we have to give the date. So what is the date column? We have to give the date column reference here. So date column is this in our example one table. I would close this. Now you have to verify this by first adding the filter here. Let me add a filter here. This is a slicer, or we called it as a filter, and I would add dates in the filter. To format this, I will go to slicer setting, and from the drop down, I would select drop down, and I would uh, add a new card here. In this card, I would uh, add our previous period sales field. So here you can see we have dates, quarter, month. So let's say if we have to see uh, the March month, March 2023. So you can see in March 2023, our total sales was 20,400, but same period, I would say March period in 2022, the total sales were uh, 13,000. So we can verify this by just going to 2022 and we will select March. So you can see 12,900, which is approximate 13,000. So by this we can compare like how much was the total sales we had in the prior years. Now the question would be, since we have selected 2022, why this is still appearing as this is appearing as blank? Because uh, there is no data available for the year 2021 March month, because the data set which we have, that is only for 2022 and 2023. When we select any data, let's say if we select the data for 2023, we can get the data for the previous year, which is 4,400, and we can validate this, that in the month of February, our total sales were 4,400, which is appearing when we selected 2023 February, it was appearing in the previous period sales. I hope you understood this. So this is very helpful when we have to compare the current period data with the previous period data. Now let's understand the another formula where we will use a filter. So for that we'll have to go to the table, and then we have to calculate, uh, let's say we have to calculate the total sales made by each of the salesmen. So for that we will use a new column. Now to calculate the total sales by salesman, we have to use the calculate Dax function. So I will be selecting calculate, then sales, and then now the question is, your first question would be, why are we using column here and not the measure? The reason is uh, we have to calculate the total sales for each of the salesmen. So we won't be getting a single constant number. Let's say for Sam, we'll have a different number. For Joe, we'll have a different number. So that's why this would not be done with the help of measure, because we'll be getting a multiple results. So then we'll have to use column. Second, we cannot apply a simple sum Dax function here, because we have to apply the filters. So let's say we have to apply the filters for the salesman name only, so that we'll get the total sales for a particular salesman. Similarly, if we want to calculate the total sales for the month, then we'll have to apply the filter for a period, or I would say month, so that I'll get the sales for that month only. So let me show you how this function works and how we can calculate the total sales by salesman with this calculate functions. So calculate functions would give me the freedom or liberty to add expression as well, not just the reference of the column. So I would just adding total sales. Then I would be adding the filter, which is all except. Then we have to give first the reference of the table, and then I would give the reference of the salesman, and that's it. Here all except Dax function is a filter. It means this would filter only the name of the salesman. no other filter would be applied here. So the function would calculate the total sales with the filter of the salesman only. No other filter would be applied. So when we enter this, so you can see for Sam, the total sales is 49,300. Let's say for Joe, the total sales he had made in this entire period is 67,900. Let's say for Chris, the total sales he had made in the entire period is 65,700, and so on. So this is how we have calculated the sum with a filter function. Now, instead of total sales by a salesman, if I want to see the total sales by a product name, so I would change the filter here from the name of the salesman to product name. So I would get the detail of how much product we have sold. So let's say the shirts have been sold for 1,800,000, pants have been sold for 35,600, and accessories have been sold for 46,500. And same would repeat wherever we have shirts. The total sales for shirt in the entire period is 1,800,000, and total pens we have sold is 35,600, and accessories we have sold is 46,500. So this is how you can calculate the total, or I would say sum, with the filter with the calculate dex functionality. So the next dex function is if function. uh, for that we'll have to create a new column. So this is exactly same if function which we have been using in MS Excel. So exactly same criteria we have. So let's say we have to calculate the sales for only the shirts which we have sold. So for that, let's say shirts sales, and if then we have a condition, or I would say the logical test. If I would say the product name is equal to shirts, if it is correct, then we will sell which column? The total sales column. If it is not correct, then we will keep it as 0. So if we enter this column would give me the shirts, only the shirts which is sold uh, during this period. So these are the 10 DEX functions which we have used in our today's video. I hope you have learned those sessions and you will be able to implement or apply those functions in your Power BI tool. And I hope you have learned and understood this. Thank you so much. We'll meet in our next video.